Right. So I have both these thermostats, the Sensei Touch 2 and the Honeywell T9. Both are available at Home Depot and probably Lowe's or Amazon or whatever. I'm going to compare them. I've used both. So I'll show you how each works, including the mobile app, and then also tell you my reasons why I chose one over the other. So here's the Sensei Touch 2. You can see right now I actually have an override going from, I think my normal schedule is at 71, but I lowered it to 70. Very easy, just press plus or minus. If you want to check your other room sensors, one click away. The fan and heat on and off, again, one click away. Any menu options, you have these. This is a funny thing though, is like there's really not many other options. They really want you to use the app. Like there's not a whole lot to do in here except connect to Wi-Fi. Um, so that's something to consider. Like I felt more or less like I had to have Wi-Fi on and use the app. I'll show you the app later. But generally speaking, everything's just like all in the first screen, and it's like all kind of like one click away. So something to consider with the Sensi is that separate room sensors, which I really like, that makes a big difference. They're sold separately. So this room sensor is like 30 or 40 bucks, I believe. This I had to get on like Amazon because Home Depot and stuff doesn't carry it. So the thermostat was, I forget, like 150 or so, and then you add like another 30 or 40 to get the room sensor. I do like the room sensor. I like how it comes with a stand because I didn't want to mount it anywhere. It takes two AAA batteries, which I really don't like. I hate AAA, but it says it's supposed to last like over a year or whatever, so maybe not that big of a deal in the end. All right, here's a Honeywell T9. I had the Sensi plugged in first, so I kind of just haphazardly plugged this one in. You can see you get a lot of information on the first screen, except the time, which you have to touch for some reason. So I'm not a fan of that. I wish it just all showed on one screen. But otherwise, it's very, very similar to the Sensi. You can see you have to click this menu open first before you can really do anything. So if you just want to like turn on the blower or turn off the heat or whatever, you got to click in the menu first and then click in here. There's also some funny UI bits in my opinion. So like let's click on schedule. I'll show you what I mean. So it's nice that you can access a schedule. Like you probably don't need the app to use this thing. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but like you can do a lot without the app. However, look at the UI sometimes. Like I want to change the time of my schedule, right? You gotta like try to scroll here. Like, especially if you're standing up, like I'm on my knees right now to be like at a nice height, but if you're like standing up trying to scroll on this wheel, that can actually be challenging in my opinion. Like it was not intuitive for me where I'm like, man, I really just want to like change this one thing. And I'm not even like very tall, but like when you're looking kind of down at a thermostat trying to scroll, it's not very nice in my opinion. So I feel like the UI could be a little simpler. It feels like there's a lot more in here, but in reality, you can't really change much more than you could on the Sensi. Or I shouldn't say change. There's not more information necessarily. Like it looks like equipment status. Oh, let me look. It's like, well, it's still just a few wires. It doesn't really have any extra info. You just have to click a little bit more to get to what is really effectively a few on-off kind of bits of data that aren't really useful anyway. So it feels like there's more, but there's really not. There has been a time actually where like this thing would bug out. Like one time it kept asking me to set the time, even though I was on Wi-Fi. So I was like, oh, whatever, let me go into. I don't think you. Yeah, it doesn't show notifications till they show up. But when you have one, it'll give you a red dot. You click in. I click in to set the time. I set the time, and I hit done, and it doesn't stick. And in the meantime, it had the wrong time using the wrong schedule, and it seemed to be in effectively a bugged out state where it wouldn't let me set the time. And on top of that, when I wasn't connected to Wi Fi, because Wi Fi auto sets the time, when I wasn't connected to Wi Fi, it would like lose track of the time sometimes. Like it was like the wrong time zone or something. I'm like, you can't change it from here. So you kind of like have to get on Wi Fi to have accurate time. But again, even then, sometimes it would like bug out and lose track of the time. Yeah, one other thing I just remember too is that like when I was first installing this, I was flipping the switch, the breaker to the furnace on and off because I don't want to switch them even though it's only 24 volts. I still want things off when doing this wiring. But like this thing takes a while to boot up.
like it has like a little Honeywell spinner and all that kind of stuff. And I think, as you saw in an earlier video, like it took a while to detect the second room sensor, and like in the meantime, it gave me like a red dot. Like it does feel a little slower and more complicated, even though there's not actually like more information in here.
So here is the Honeywell room sensor. Again, it came with the thermostat from Home Depot. Uh, it looks a lot like the thermostat, discrete. It doesn't have a stand, but you can set it down just the same. It also takes two AAA batteries, which I hate. And but yeah, it's otherwise performs very similarly. It's not really a differentiator between the two, in my opinion. Here's the Sensei app on my Android phone. There's not a whole lot to do in here. Like you do have to sign up with email and like your address and zip code kind of thing, but it's pretty bare bones. You click here, you have a list of thermostats. Look, it's almost exactly like the thermostat, except there's like usage. The usage has always worked for me. Really easy to use. Um, let me show you how like you edit a schedule, because that's something else that's different from the thermostat. You got to click quite a few times. Like it feels a little like I only have one schedule. Why are you making me click like edit up here? But that being said, it's very easy edit. Notice though, when you actually click on one of these, you can only set like the temperatures. You can't set, say, like having the fan circulate at certain times. I really didn't like the lack of that feature. The Sensei does have a nice circulate mode though, so it's not like not the end of the world. I'll show you real quick. See, the circulate mode actually lets you choose how much of every hour you can circulate. I think it increments by like 5% or so. So you do have an option to circulate the fan. It's just that you can't schedule it. But yeah, other than that, it's a pretty nice app. Every time you open it, it has to like reach out to the thermostat via Wi-Fi. I've worked in like these IoT devices before, and like that's a pretty typical pattern. It's been reliable. It's been actually pretty quick. There was one time where it logged me out and I couldn't log in for like 10 minutes. And I think that's because there was a server issue on the Sensei side. So that was unfortunate, but that's 10 minutes out of the week, and I'm really skeptical if it'll happen again. But that's the Sensei app. All right, here is the Honeywell app, which, by the way, is actually called like Residio. The instruction manual, everything will say get the Honeywell Home app, but it's actually called Residio now because I believe that's a subsidiary of Honeywell, like the residential one. Anyway, it's very similar to Sensei. Click on the thermostat you want. Very similar information to Sensei. Let's look at like the schedule. Here's like one of the differences I was talking about earlier, which is that when you schedule, you can change your fan mode, which is nice. Like you might want to have like air circulating while you sleep or whatever. But besides that, very similar. I do feel like it is a little less graceful. Like how I mentioned the Sensei has to connect when you start the app up. Like it connects to the thermostat to get the latest information. I believe this does the same too, but the difference is that sometimes it says like offline, and then you reopen the app and it says offline. Then the third time it finally like says your thermostat's online. So that's a little annoying that it doesn't just have like a loading screen where it just waits for the connection to happen. Also, I feel like 20% of the time I open this, it asks me to turn on like notifications. And like I'm sure I can probably block that in Android somehow, but it is a little annoying that the app like brings that up every time. And again, I don't know why. So overall, very similar. Just keep in mind it's called Residio, and yeah, maybe there's uh, some rougher edges in this app, in my opinion. So my final verdict between these two, I like the Sensei better. Every little negative thing I mentioned about the Honeywell was something that I ran into personally that I didn't like. The thing I think that got me the most though was like the time I was telling you that it like forgot the time or asked me to set the time and then it wouldn't actually take. That feels just like a firmware bug to me. Like there's something slightly wrong with this thing, like the firmware on it, such that if it loses track of time and it doesn't let you correct it, your thermostat's basically not functioning correctly then because of scheduling and things like that. The Sensei is just a little faster, a little quicker, a little simpler. For someone like me who just wants like an extra room sensor, or maybe in the future to do more sophisticated Wi-Fi things, like the Sensei is a nice step up from your basic non-Wi-Fi thermostat. The Honeywell does not actually do much more in my experience, and it just feels a bit slower and buggier. So that'd be my recommendation: is go with the Sensei. So yeah, please like, subscribe, comment, whatever. Thank you.